The airport was unusually quiet that morning, the kind of stillness that makes even the sound of footsteps echo like thunder. Sergeant Daniel Reed walked through the terminal in full dress uniform, his white gloves spotless, his face expressionless, yet behind those calm eyes was a storm of memories and grief. He carried a single small casket, draped in the American flag. It was the body of Private Nathan Cole, a young soldier who had fallen in Afghanistan. Daniel had been assigned as the tomb guard escort. His duty was to ensure that the fallen made it home with the same honor given to those who rest at Arlington National Cemetery. He walked with a deliberate calm through the crowd, each step measured, every movement filled with respect. People turned their heads as he passed, some whispering, some simply staring. A few removed their hats instinctively, though they did not know why. Something about his presence demanded reverence. When he reached the airline counter, the clerk looked confused. She asked for documentation. Daniel presented every paper, every authorization, yet her nervous expression didn't fade. She made a quick call, and moments later, 2 airport security officers appeared, their postures stiff and uneasy. "Sir, we're going to need to verify this transport," one of them said. Daniel's jaw tightened. He had done this countless times before, but never been stopped. He nodded, understanding protocol, yet as they let him aside, the murmurs in the terminal grew louder. Through the glass windows, the morning sun reflected off the metal case that carried the remains. It shone like a sacred object, a silent witness to sacrifice. As the minutes dragged, the security staff began questioning him more insistently. Where was the authorization from the Department of Defense? Why was the escort not coordinated with the airline's manager? Why had the flight been delayed? Daniel answered everything calmly, his tone steady, but beneath that composure, grief burned. He had known Nathan personally. The boy was only 19, bright, hopeful, full of jokes and dreams of seeing the world. Now he was returning in silence, in a box. The same age Daniel's brother had been when he was killed in Iraq 10 years earlier. When the officers called for a supervisor, an older man appeared, his face hard with years of bureaucracy. He looked at Daniel with suspicion and said, "We have to hold this transport until we confirm the paperwork. You can't proceed." "The flight is boarding now," Daniel replied, his voice low but firm. "The family is waiting in Kentucky. They have been told he will arrive today. This is his final journey. I can't let him be delayed." The supervisor frowned. "Rules are rules, Sergeant. We cannot allow unverified cargo on board." Daniel's patience began to fracture. He took a deep breath and said quietly, "This is not cargo. This is a soldier who gave his life for his country." The man hesitated, but before he could respond, a woman in a nearby line approached. She had been watching everything, tears in her eyes. She spoke softly to the officers. "I lost my husband overseas. I know that uniform. Please let him do his duty." Others began to gather around, some filming with phones, others simply standing in silence. Soon, the murmurs turned into a hush. Dozens of passengers fell quiet as Daniel stood there motionless beside the casket. Finally, the airline manager arrived, breathless and apologetic. She quickly reviewed the documents and turned pale. Everything was in perfect order. She looked at the supervisor with anger. "How could you stop him?" she whispered. "This escort was approved last night." She turned to Daniel. "I am so sorry, Sergeant." He nodded slightly, not saying a word, his composure unbroken. The officer stepped aside, and Daniel placed his gloved hand gently on the flag-draped casket. For a moment, everything in the terminal froze. Even the announcement stopped. He whispered something no one could hear, then began walking toward the gate. The crowd instinctively parted, forming a silent path as he passed. Not one person spoke, not one person moved. Even children seemed to understand something sacred was happening. As Daniel walked up the ramp toward the plane, a flight attendant saluted, tears running down her face. Daniel nodded in return. Once aboard, he secured the casket in the cargo hold himself, then stood at attention as the doors closed. When the plane landed hours later in Kentucky, the family was waiting on the tarmac. Nathan's mother held a folded photograph in her hands. Daniel descended first, carrying the folded flag over his arm. When the cargo door opened and the casket was brought out, the family broke into tears. Daniel did not move until the final salute was given. Only then did he step forward and kneel before Nathan's mother, offering her the flag. She took it, trembling, her voice breaking as she whispered, "Thank you." He looked at her, eyes filled with sorrow, and said, "He was not alone, ma'am, not for a second." She nodded, unable to speak. The ceremony ended, but the story did not die. Days later, a video surfaced online, filmed by a passenger, showing Daniel standing tall while being questioned by airport staff, and then the crowd parting in silence to let him pass. It spread like wildfire across social media. Thousands commented, some ashamed that he had been stopped, others deeply moved by the dignity with which he handled it. Veterans from across the country wrote messages of respect. Airports began reviewing their policies to ensure escorts would never again be delayed. Daniel never spoke publicly about it. When asked, he simply said, "I did my duty, nothing more." But those who were there that day knew they had witnessed something sacred, not just a soldier fulfilling his duty, but a nation silently bowing its head to honor one of its own. The next week, Daniel stood once again at Arlington Cemetery, guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier. The rain fell softly on the white marble, his uniform drenched, his face calm, yet inside he carried every story, every fallen name, every weight of honor. He paused for a moment, closed his eyes, and whispered, "For Nathan and for all who came before," then resumed his post, motionless, unyielding, a living promise that no soldier would ever be forgotten.